So you may have noticed we have a special guest. Archie is... Okay, he's gone now. Because, of course. Anyway, today I'm gonna talk to us about genes. And the first kind of chunk of the two-chunk unit that we're gonna... So, chapter 9 has two pieces, as you may have figured out. Will we go to the next slide, maybe? Okay, here we go. So yeah, this chapter has two chunks, and I've broken it up because I want to, and I can because I'm the professor, which is cool. Anyway, so yeah, this chapter talks about two biologically based approaches to how personality might be inherited. In this chunk, this module, we're going to talk about the genetic approach. So behavior genetics, I have lots of differing opinions from David Funder. And this is in the one place where if you write what David Funder wrote, we're going to watch this lecture. I mean, you're watching it now, but lean more on this lecture and less on the book. Now, the other chunk that you'll see in the next module is evolutionary psychology. Now, there are ways to combine these approaches with each other. I haven't seen it done super well. I'd love to be, if anyone finds some good examples of behavior genetics and evolutionary psych fused together, well, I'm all ears. Put it in the share a cool thing module, or engagement activities. But yeah, and so I tend to use a behavior genetic approach and fuse it with other approaches we've seen throughout this class. So yeah, but we're only covering behavior genetics this unit. Alright, so here's how the book frames it. The book frames behavior genetics as how personality traits differ among individuals and how those are passed from parent to child, as well as shared by biological relatives. I fundamentally disagree with this definition. Hence the sort of disclaimers for all of them. So, personality traits, yeah, we're interested in things that do differ among individuals, so we're not particularly concerned with traits that are the same for everyone. So need for food, need for water, number of noses that you start out with, those are all characteristics that all humans start with. So we're only interested in traits that vary amongst individuals. Now, we don't give a shit, though, about how those are passed from parent to child. Behavior genetics, for the most part, does not model parent-child transmission. We don't. Statistical genetics does, but not behavior genetics. But so none of this inherited from parent to child. No, because that also leads into a fundamental misunderstanding of how environmental effects as well as genetic effects happen. So I need to write David an email. That's what I'm getting a sense of right now. But so we are interested in things that are shared by biological relatives. Typically, behavior genetic studies do not look at parent to child. I've done a little modeling on parent to child, and let me tell you, it is not easy. And there's a reason why there are only a handful of models that kind of look at it. The parent-child modeling in behavior genetics is not what behavior genetics is. The fact that I'm one of the handful of people that does it or can do it and can tell you it's awful and should illustrate that do not write on any assignment that heritability is how traits are passed from parent to child. That is wrong. So the next step, though, okay, so that's, hopefully we might be able to see my mouse. Okay. Well, alright, so here, let's see, can I cross it? Pen, here we go. No, bad. Alright, I am scraping through this in case that is unclear. No. There. This is correct-ish. Sure. There. By relatives. There we go. This right here. Sorry, you get to watch me color this. Okay, because you can do behavior genetic modeling when people don't share any genes. Well, I mean, they share 99%, but they don't share that last little chunk. So yeah, because there's adoptee studies, and those are not biological relatives, but they're still relatives. Because family is more than just your DNA. Alright, so that's the first little chunk and how the book is wrong. Next, like the idea of examining how genes influence broad patterns of behaviors. We're not really interested in the gene itself and how it drives it. What we're looking for is explaining how sources of how patterns, or where those patterns seem to come from. Heritable traits, sure, are technically genetic, but not in the way that people think of. Like, it's not like there's one gene that causes you to, like, be more extroverted. It's a really distal pathway, like super distal. And so it's kind of misleading to say that genes are because influence isn't wrong. But it's like not exactly right. Behavior genetics primarily is descriptive. It describes these patterns and where the models say they come from. So let's chunk a little 2 here. Describe. This is art, clearly. Describe. Yeah. So, and third, there's a lot of controversy around associations with eugenics and cloning. Full stop. Now, the reason why I have a sort of here, because I pulled these. So typically I don't use the PowerPoint slides that the book gives, but this slide I wanted to address. That's why it's here, and that's why I'm just shredding it. So the book says, and the slides the book provides, which I argue is the book saying, is that modern research is not concerned with these issues. There are researchers who aren't concerned with these issues, but they should be. So just to back up a little, eugenics is this idea that humanity can be improved through selective breeding, and so positive eugenics is encouraging people with good stock to breed more, while negative eugenics is discouraging people of bad stock to breed less. Now, I am not endorsing eugenics at all. Please don't misunderstand me here. I'm just saying that that's what it is. And it has a long history with behavior genetics. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. It is woefully misinformed or very optimistic about their interpretation, because some of the flagship journals like Sociobiology and Demography used to be called Eugenics Quarterly, and a lot of the early data sets that I now work with, I repurpose old data sets to make them do cool things. I have to cite papers from Eugenics Quarterly, or I think there's one called Genetics of Mankind or something. Yeah, and so I don't like citing them, but I have to, because they're the best site for it. It's historical. But we discuss these. I at least discuss these. A lot of the more woke behavior geneticists will have a unit on how eugenics has shaped the field. And so while modern research is this idea, like, the unfortunate thing is that because of eugenics and cloning, a lot of people associate behavior genetics with eugenics. And there's also this idea, if you find a genetic effect and you and you describe it, that makes you a eugenicist. I have had many conversations with faculty and professors from various places about how a genetic effect is like the opposite of eugenics. And so I've got a paper that looks at the genetic association between socioeconomic status and physical health. And we find a big genetic component there. And most people's gut reaction is, oh God, why would you say that something's genetic? That means we can't intervene, and people are going to misuse that finding to stop funding. And it's unfortunate that happens. And so what I had to do in that paper is really, really clearly emphasize that a genetic effect means we can intervene. It's like the flip of what you should think. Like, so a genetic effect means that there is some genetic precursor way, way back in the causal stream. It doesn't mean that, like, genes are causing poor people to get sick. No, that's not. Or, like, wealthy people to, like, not get sick. That's not what's happening at all. What it tells us is that there are systematic familial differences, likely intergenerational structural consequences of systematic poverty and structures that are linked here. And if we identify what those common things are that seem to be associated with poverty, we can intervene and then snip the link between whatever two, in this case, physical health and socioeconomic status. We can snip the link and intervene. And then, in future iterations of study, we'll find a smaller genetic link, which is great. I would love to find fewer genetic links for the most part, because that means that we don't have systematic structures that are, like, driving effects. And also, when these conversations get a little heated, I have to then drop, yeah, I'm not a eugenicist. My family survived the camps. I'm descended, at least partially, from Romani gypsies. And that usually helps dissuade faculty and other, like, conversationalists that I'm not. I don't like having to do that. I really don't. But I do it to kind of, like, highlight that I'm very mindful of this topic, and I'm not, like, going in willy-nilly. I'm thinking clearly and critically. And so the good behavior geneticists out there are going in very mindful of the historical precedents that are going on, and they do it very carefully. Now, and so the comment here about modern research is not concerned. We are very concerned about the historical precedent here. I don't really care so much about the cloning because it's just not feasible. CRISPR's got its own problems. And, like, no. But, like, the kind of key takeaway in the notes in the book's version of this lecture is that personality is determined by more than genes. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with, like, this, like, the genes are so, like, distal, and we don't know what the specific ones are. It's alright. So, in all likelihood, I'm gonna cut the video right here. So, I'm gonna give myself a nice little transition, just in case, because this is already at 14 minutes. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for behavior genetics. The book is like, so lean on the lecture, please. But yeah, so thanks for watching this little spiel. I will see you next time, and I'm gonna do some stupid, like, gymnastics here. So bye bye.